Welcome to the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show. I'm Jeff DiVeronica alongside Steve Bradley. And Steve, we're going to talk some more Section 5 girls basketball in the 50th anniversary season of the Section 5 girls basketball tournament. And we're going to dial it way back and talk with a legendary coach who never thought he'd really be a girls basketball coach. He did not think it was going to take and ended up for most of his career, probably at least the last quarter of it, he was the winningest Section 5 girls basketball coach in the history of the sport. He was recently overtaken, I think, 3 years ago by Pete Perino of Keshequa, and Pete's still coaching in his 42nd year. And this young man coached for 37 seasons in Section 5. He coached at Greece Athena. I said it out of order, I beg your pardon. 1977 to 87 at Greece Arcadia, 3 championships.
Are we going to say his name?
No, it's just like, who is it?
Oh.
Greece Athena, 87 to 2002. And then Seneca Falls Minders, 2014 to 2013. And finally at Wayland Cohocton from 2015 to 2018. And the answer is, Steve, who is this person?
Al Best.
It's Al Best, and he joins us now on our specialties hotline. Al, welcome back to the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show. I hope retirement is treating you well, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Jeff. Good to talk to you.
7 Section 5 titles. You know, I look about it, 37 years and 7 titles. The percentage isn't that great, Al. I mean, come on.
Well, if you are going to put me on the stand to defend my career, I would say take a look at the number of appearances in the Section 5 finals, and then you're going to bring up, well, you lost about half of those.
No, and you know what? And I won't even go. I won't even go down this road. That because if there wasn't a team named Our Lady of Mercy, you would have had about probably 4 or 5 more. So
and there's no need to defend that career. That career is outstanding.
No, he knows I'm only giving him a hard time. So Al, 534 career wins. We want to talk about some of the evolution of girls basketball in our area. You were here from the beginning, almost the beginning. 77 Greece Arcadia. You were there for 15 years, coached some great players. We're going to talk about some of the great players in Section 5 history that Al has seen and some of the memories of recruiting in Section 5 with a young man named Gino Oriema, recruiting our area pretty hard back then. But Al, can we just start first with, how did you end up being, I thought you were a football coach, I thought. How did you end up being a girls basketball coach in Greece?
I ended up having a conversation with a football coach, Ben Giuseppe.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he could always use some help. And when a coaching position in football opened up, he hired me. I told him I would probably be here for 2 years, maybe 3 at the most. I had some other interests that would take me far away. And I ended up really feeling very comfortable here. And when Ben was offered the athletic director's job at Arcadia, he had to give up football. So at that point, I decided maybe it was time for me to get out of football and free myself up. And Ben came to me and said that the girls basketball coach had resigned. She was leaving to teach in California. And would I take over the program? And I told him I would do it for 2 years, maybe 3 at the max, because the girls had a different coach basically almost every year. They were just starting, and Section 5 was just starting. Doggone it, I couldn't get out of here.
Al, when you look at what Section 5 girls basketball was like when you started and what it is now, what are the biggest changes and what are you most proud of the evolution of the game to see?
Well, in 78, which was my first year, we didn't even have the same color uniforms that the boys had. So, that's my first thing is looking at the equipment, and we didn't even have the proper attire. And that's not a slam on Arcadia or Greece. This was a whole new thing in reference to girls' sports. It was, an experiment in attempting to give the girls a shot at athletics. And most of the girls all over this part of the state had never really had an organized sport opportunity. So this was really new at the time. How do you build a program and how can you get the girls to improve when you have such a short season, you played 3 games in a week, which meant you might be lucky to have 2 practices. Now, these are people with no experience and very little background in the sport. So how does the product going to look out there, when
Did you
parents
play
are watching?
basketball growing up, Coach Best? Did you play basketball growing up?
Yes.
Okay, so you played the sport. And I don't even know, are you where did you grow up?
I grew up in Mansfield, Pennsylvania.
I did know that. Okay. So if we go back to the 70s and some of the best players to come out of here, I jotted down some names today, went through some archival stuff, and player you coached at Arcadia, Betsy LaPaglia, went to Virginia. I want to talk about that. Of course, Beth Record, you coached, you saw her play for Red Jackets, still the all-time leading scorer in Section 5 basketball history, 2,895 points. But let me just run some to reel off some names here, Steve. Amy Reinders from Aquinas went to Rutgers. This is 80 in the 80s, I think. She was early 90s, I think. Kate Cronin from Dundee went to Marquette. You coached a fantastic rebounder player, post player named Shauna Williams. Missy Mosley from Victor went to Penn State. I think Penn State recruited this area pretty hard. Al, was there a reason for that? I mean, there's some other good players from around here, but was there a good relationship with the coaching staff there? Why was Penn State so hot on Rochester?
Well, I did know the Penn State head coach, and I did know one of the assistant coaches there for women. The first year that I coached at Arcadia, I took 4 or 5 girls down from Arcadia to a summer camp in Pennsylvania run by Kathy Rush. Now, Kathy Rush was probably one of the most well-known women athletes in America, and her husband was Ed Rush, who happened to be an NBA referee.
Ed T. Rush.
And she really made it a camp where you had to work on fundamentals the first half of the day. You couldn't play games until the late afternoon and evenings. The result was you had maybe anywhere between 50 and 150 coaches there watching players because they were looking for people to get scholarships to. My players showed up from Rochester, and with a 4-sport season, there was nothing in reference to an easy way for them to develop.
Explain that to our viewers, though. A lot of people know what the 4-sport season was back then.
Primary sport, let's say soccer, would go September, October.
Basically, the girls' seasons were broken into 10-week periods, just like the academics. So they had more sports but less time to play.
Right. We're talking with Al Best. He's Section 5 legendary girls basketball coach. He coached at Greece Arcadia, Greece Athena, Minders, and Wayland Cohocton. And 3 of the 4 stops, he won Section 5 titles, all 7 of them. So let's take a quick break, come back. We'll talk more with Al. I want to get into some of these names, and I want to find out a little bit more about Gino Oriema and his introduction to Section 5 basketball. But before we do that, I'd like to tell you about my friends from Bath Fitter. They can remake your bathroom in one day. Call them up, 617-0007, bathfitter.com to check out their stuff. There's a reason Bath Fitter is one of the highest grossing operations for Bath Fitter in the country. Rochester area is one of the tops. It's because they do great work, and word of mouth travels fast in Rochester. So please support Bath Fitter because they support local high school sports and our program right here. We'll take a quick break. You're watching the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show on Rock Sports Now.
Looking for a used truck? Can you find one out of 350? At BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com, you'll find one. Love SUVs? 800 are waiting for you to take one home at BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com. Add 350 pre-owned sedans, and you've got a total of 1,500 used vehicles only at BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com.
Bob Johnson's got your ride. Bob Johnson.
While we celebrate 140 years of serving our community, the kind of delicious joy that lasts a lifetime, we look forward to serving you for 140 more. With hardworking, wholehearted, passionate people who will help shape new memories for generations to come.
When it comes to workers' comp, things can change quickly.
The only way to make sure your rights are protected is to have a trusted, committed attorney on your side.
An attorney who has devoted their career to helping injured workers.
Someone to fight for the money and medical benefits you deserve.
The only person on your side
is the attorney at your side.
Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys.
The best three things here at McQuaid are definitely the sports, the brotherhood, and the service to community. I think that's a really big, important thing that McQuaid stresses, which is part of creating a better and great man. You definitely feel a connection with your fellow students here. It's being all guy school. You're able to relate to each other on a personal level, and everyone's very welcoming here with open arms and willing to be your friend.
Local McDonald's operators care about our local schools, teams, and student athletes. That's why they support the return of high school athletics in the Rochester area and around the state. See you before or after the big game at McDonald's. Welcome back, Section 5. Game on!
In these challenging times, our dedicated team at American Custom continues to provide top-quality installations to every customer. With guidelines and restrictions changing daily, we apply attention to every detail. You can trust our team to make sure the job is done right.
Welcome back to the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show. Jeff DiVeronica and Steve Bradley here talking with Al Best. One time for a long time, he was the winningest Section 5 girls basketball coach, 534 wins in 34 seasons at Arcadia, Athena, Minders, and Wayland Cohocton. We're talking about the evolution of Section 5 girls basketball. He was in it from basically the start in the mid-'70s till up until 2018 as a coach. And Al, you were in on the ground floor. A lot of the recruiters and a lot of the coaches that became big name coaches, they used to come to Rochester. Who were some of those names and people?
Well, these were high school coaches working with the girls at the All-Star Camp in Philadelphia with the Kathy Rush Camp. Yeah, and there was a young high school kid there as a coach because he had been working as a boys coach, and his name was Gino Auriemma, and he's turned into be a pretty good one.
He's done all right, hasn't he?
Yeah. So over this time, our girls that we brought down there became competitive with girls who had national reputations. So these camps would have 50 to 100 coaches maybe watching the camps, looking for players. And when our girls got to the point where they were actually competitive with them, a lot of coaches, college coaches, started introducing themselves to me, which was difficult because I had long hair and didn't look like your normal coach. But they bit the bullet and they talked to me because I was around a lot of the talented young ladies from Section 5.
Now, one of them was one of your players, Betsy LaPaglia. She ended up going to Virginia, right? And Kathy Ryan from Victor was already at Virginia. But I think you told me once, wasn't Gino Auriemma a recruiter for Virginia?
Gino was one of the high school coaches that worked at that camp. And a lot of those people, a lot of the high school coaches who worked in those camps eventually got into college coaching. Gino was one of them. When Betsy got to the point where she became a national player of interest in reference to a high school player, Virginia was very interested, and Gino Auriemma, as an assistant coach, it was his job to recruit Betsy. Now, that is 1982. It was the last year of the AIWA rules. It was not NCAA at the time. And those rules allowed coaches to stay with the high school. So I had a bunch of college coaches that year bunking out at my house, and Gino was one of them. Gino stayed for a couple of days because he and I had hung around together with a great group of people.
What did he like for breakfast, Al?
Yeah. What's Gino eating for breakfast?
I would like to tell you that he usually didn't get up till noon, but he was okay with bagels. That's the actual truth of it.
And, a lot of kids today don't understand what the Empire State Games were. They were a really cool thing. And you coached, what was it? You had some good teams, and it brought together our best players to play together, which this was before AAU ball. This was before these kids all played on the same teams in the summer. But for Empire State Games, they could play together. And you would bring together a Courtney Romiser, and an Amy Dressler and other area players. They got to play with each other and go play against other regions of the state. So that was really cool too. Before we let you go, though, I want to find out about the top players in your mind and area history. We just talked about one. I know how highly you regard Betsy LaPaglia. I can tell you my era from when I covered this more. You were still coaching, but I would tell you no one's better than Shanice Johnson that I saw play. I never saw LaPaglia play. I never saw Missy Mosley play. I never saw a Sandy Mitchell from Waterloo play. 1993 All Greater Rochester Player of the Year from Waterloo. How would you rate Sandy Mitchell, Coach Best?
She would have been the best guard in Section 5 ever.
Ever? Okay.
We've had some incredible post players. Shauna Williams belongs in that group, in my opinion.
I remember you always. She played in the same era as Amy Dressler, and Dressler got a lot of publicity. But I remember Shauna Williams did a lot of the dirty work for those teams. Probably a couple of them lost to Mercy in the championship game, and I think another one probably beat Mercy. But that was the Mercy team was Montesano and
somebody
O'Neill.
named Wambach, right?
Probably you played against Abby Wambach. Yeah, for sure he did.
Yep. Well, if we're talking post players, I would add Kelly O'Neill from Mercy.
Yep.
Kelly O'Hearn, soccer coach at Victor now.
Yep. And there's a girl, you probably don't remember her. She was probably the third prong of the HFL dynasty. And I call it dynasty because they were really good. They won a state championship with Maddie Brown, Jess Chapin at the point guard position. And then down low, a girl who went to Notre Dame, Erica Williamson, another really good post player. Rochelle Cherry. I mean, we go on and on from Nazareth, right?
Megan
Dahlman. She was a post player that could do pretty much everything.
I mean, Al, would you agree that when the three-pointer came in, it's become more of a guards game?
Definitely.
Well, and one player you know very well, we've had her on our show. She's from Greece. Megan Schonecker had a heck of a career at Greece Arcadia when you were at Greece Athena.
Yep. No, I think, isn't she into coaching herself now?
She is. She coaches at University of Rhode Island, her alma mater. She's a recruiter for them. Yep. But you could say Maddie Brown. You could say whatever you bring up, whatever name you want. And I'm telling you right now, you never saw her play enough to appreciate her. But Shanice Johnson was the best. And there's a couple of names that Steve and I know probably better than you. But for a while, School of the Arts had it going pretty good. They had a tandem there.
Marche White.
That duo was fantastic. I think they won 2 or 3 Section 5 titles for School of the Arts. It was like School of the Arts.
And have we talked enough about Caitlin Howe? Because you can make an argument that Caitlin Howe changed the modern era in how this area was recruited.
And there's another one that I would put her in my top 5, Alyssa Fanaim from Newark. So, but no, I mean Amy Reinders. I covered her when I was a college student here. She was fantastic, could do it all. I never covered Sandy Mitchell. Marcus Whitman had some really good players out in the Finger Lakes.
Liz Brown.
Stina Volpe, Batavia Notre Dame, right? I mean, you look all around our region, and there's some great players out of Section 5. So.
Well, I would just throw this out at you. The best players, I mean, we're talking about just the best. We had a few girls who could play anywhere in the country, and they would match up and give everything every problem you want to have, they can create it for the players that are the best players that you guys saw in the past 10, 15 years. It's amazing. And I'd like to throw one name at you. Jody Levin.
Jody Levin. See, now that predates me, I believe.
Jody was a guard from DeSales in Geneva. She went to the University of Rochester. I think she scored over 2,000 points. And when we started the Empire Games, and I was coaching
Jory Davis, by the way, Jory Davis. Before I forget, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I had to get that out there. Sorry. Why was she so good?
I think she could run all day. She was an incredible athlete. I think she was amazingly strong for her size, and she was a competitor. She just would not take a back step to anybody. She would not lose.
Well, it's been an education. I'll say that. The next time we have you on, I want you to break down the amoeba defense for us, because it used to puzzle people what you would do to try to stop people. And this man also coached a team that had 4 wins going into the postseason, and Seneca Falls Miners won the championship that year. I think it was 2013. Al, it's been a pleasure talking to you, sir. We got to go. It's about midnight.
Thanks, Al.
What part of the country are you guys in?
I'm going to turn into a pumpkin.
Okay.
For our producer, Joe Brott, I'm Jeff DiVeronica, he's Steve Bradley, and our thanks to Al Best, one of the best coaches Rochester basketball has ever seen. Thanks for watching us right here on the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show.